And I said, yeah, sorry, I just, having to wait on rides and stuff can be really inconvenient. And he said, do you drive at all? And I said, no. He said, but like, let me ask you, like, are you able to drive? I guess he was asking if I was physically able to drive, or if that was what was keeping me from driving. And I said, yeah. So today is Tuesday, August 13th, 2024. It's 6 p.m. and today is day 15 of TMS, or transcranial magnetic stimulation therapy for depression and anxiety. If you're new here, my goal is to make one of these videos every single day that I'm undergoing treatment so I can keep track of my mood, talk about how the treatment felt, and again, just talk about my progress overall to see if this treatment is actually helping as far as the depression and the anxiety symptoms go. So today I went in and they did again the bilateral stimulation with the slow tapping on the right side for anxiety, and that was less time, right? So the anxiety protocol for some reason is taps for less time than the depression. I think the anxiety goes on for like 15 to 18 minutes, whereas the depression goes on for like 25 to 30 minutes, around there. So just slightly less on the right side than the left side. And again, my intensity, they got up to 115 on both sides. Um, and I'm very confused because I kept hearing that the goal was for them to get to 120. And I'm pretty sure they were talking about intensity. Um, and today, after I was done with the treatment, I asked the TMS technician how high we got up to as far as like intensity, and then he said we got up to 115 on both sides. And I said, oh well, that's good, it wasn't too bad. um, and I haven't felt the need to wear earplugs, because at the beginning of treatment a couple weeks ago they told me that once we get to 120, around there, like 110 to 120, that I might need to wear earplugs to protect my ears. And I said, why? It hasn't been like that loud or anything. I haven't had the need to wear earplugs. And the technician said something along the lines of, that's because your MT, or your motor threshold, is still pretty low. So I guess maybe the 115, 120 refers more to like amplitude, or maybe the technician was talking about amplitude, whereas the number that I'm looking at is uh, different. And then maybe the motor threshold is like how strong the electrical signals they send are. I'm not sure. I think I still have to do more research, because I'm not quite understanding what he meant by my MT, or motor threshold, is still pretty low. Does that mean that the intensity is going to be at 120, but maybe the electrical signals or pulses or whatever it is that they send is going to be higher? So that would be the amplitude, and maybe that makes it so that it's louder. I'm not really sure. So I need to ask for some clarification on that. But anyway, yeah, the goal initially they said was to get to 120. But today, around noon, I checked in with the psychiatrist who's the provider who, again, set up the entire treatment, and he's in charge of overseeing the process. I only saw him in person once. Um, and he was there at the very beginning, where he like chose like, I guess, what intensity to start at, the motor threshold, um, the treatment that I was going to do. He decided we were going to do bilateral. But from there on out, it's only been TMS technicians that I've seen that have done the treatment for me. But once a week, I do have to check in with the actual psychiatrist, and he asks me again, like, how the treatment is going and overall how I'm feeling as far as depression and anxiety. But they also asked me that, the technicians also asked me to rate my depression and anxiety on a scale from 1 to 10 every day that I go. So, and then again, once a week, I meet with the actual psychiatrist, but they've been phone consultations. So they've been really brief, like 5 to 10 minute phone phone meetings with the psychiatrist just to kind of check in. And today I had the meeting with him, and he told me, you know what, you're tolerating it pretty well. So we're going to see if we can even maybe increase it from what we originally said it was going to be 120, but we're going to see if we can go even a little bit higher. And you're going into um, past the second week now, and this is about when people really start seeing improvements. And so, yeah, that's what he said. Again, still confused about that whole empty motor threshold versus amplitude versus intensity. I don't know. It's all very confusing terminology to me. Um, so I mentioned in my previous video how I was feeling really down because I stopped taking my stimulant medication for like 2 days because I forgot to refill it, ask for a refill on Friday, and um, so I had to go Saturday and Sunday without my medication. And yesterday I didn't take it, but this morning I did take it, and it does. I feel a little bit better. Um, and I do have a little bit of a headache now. That hadn't been happening before. At the beginning of TMS treatment, I did have headaches, and then they just kind of went away. And today I'm experiencing a headache again. Not extreme, not like a migraine or anything, just a slight headache. Um, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, the stimulant medication. That's the only medication I'm currently taking, and it's for ADHD. I'm taking 26.1 milligrams of Asteris, which is a stimulant medication. Um, and I'm not taking anything for the depression or the anxiety at this point. My diagnoses are generalized anxiety disorder, major depressive disorder, ADHD, and cerebral palsy. Um, and I'm also seeing a therapist once a week. I actually see her tomorrow morning. Um, and what else? So today I just went to work. I got to work. I work at 2 different school sites as a speech therapist. Today I got to work at the school site where I actually have a room to myself. So I think I had some time to decompress. I got to relax a little bit. I don't have to share space with others, which to me feels like it's a huge help. But also that office has horrible ventilation and it's really hot in there, which is not ideal. They moved me from a really big room that I was really comfortable in to a tiny little space that almost looks like a storage, like a tiny storage, and the ventilation sucks. And now I'm trying to see about getting some like an AC or something in there because it's so hot. But yeah, I'm very much introverted and I like having my own space. So I think that helps having my own space to be at least once a week where I don't have to share space with like other providers, which I have to do 4 times out of the week when I'm at the other school site. Um, so today I went to work. I didn't do much other than really schedule the kids that I have to see next week. Um, I'm seeing a total of like 17 kids in one day, back to back in groups of like 3. So it's going to be a hectic day once I actually start seeing those kids next week. I already started seeing the kids that I down here at this other campus, at this other school, and it hasn't been too bad. Um, that was pretty much how my day went. I don't like I don't like relying on stimulant medication, and I hate the way that it makes me feel when I stop taking it. Like, I feel terrible. So I really want to come off it eventually. Today, the TMS technician, I, I was late. I was like 15 minutes late. Um, and part of it is because I don't drive, so I have to wait for my parents. Usually it's my parents, my dad or my mom, to pick me up. And my dad picked me up around 6:20-ish. No, 3:20-ish. And then we got to the TMS center later than usual because it's like a 45-minute drive from the campus that I'm at today to the TMS center. So I got there around 4:15, whereas I was actually supposed to be there at 4. So the TMS technician said, "Oh, we might have to cut the session short if my next client gets here, um, you know, at 5, which is when we're supposed to get done with your session. But since you got here a little late, we might end up having to cut it short. And I told him I completely understood. And I think he kind of had a feeling I didn't drive. I think I might have mentioned it. And I said, yeah, sorry. I just, having to wait on rides and stuff can be really inconvenient. Um, and he said, do you drive at all? And I said, no. He said, but like, let me ask you, like, are you able to drive, or like, I guess he was asking if I was physically able to drive, or if that was what was keeping me from driving. And I said, yeah, I'm physically able to drive. It's just the anxiety that keeps me from actually going to the DMV and taking the driving test. I've taken driving courses. My dad has taken me for driving lessons. My son's dad has taken me out driving. I just never feel comfortable or confident enough to actually drive on my own. Um, but who knows? Maybe the TMS treatment will help with my anxiety in that regard. And he said, oh, okay, yeah, makes sense. Must be tough to have to rely on people for rides. And I said, yeah. And it's always embarrassing for me to, like, admit that I don't drive. Um, I don't know if the people that I work with even really know that I don't drive. And I think I've kept it hidden partly because when I applied to the job, they specifically said they needed an itinerant SLP. So they needed someone who could drive back and forth because I was going to be working at 2 different campuses. And I felt like if I said, well, I don't drive, that would affect my chances of getting the job. And at the time, I really needed the money. My parents needed the money. I've been helping them by paying a good chunk of the mortgage because they were struggling. So we kind of agreed that they would kind of give me rides to and from work, and that I would, pay for part of the mortgage. And like, it's embarrassing to be the only one in a professional setting, in the school setting, who doesn't drive. And I feel like I'm carrying that around, and it like almost like creates shame, right? Um, just like I'm always on edge about, like, are they gonna find out that my parents are dropping me off or that I don't drive? Um, yeah, so I got kind of sidetracked. Maybe they know, you know. I'm sure they've seen, like, my parents drop me off and stuff. The other day, one of my supervisors had to leave work early because she had to take the cat to the vet, one of her cats to the vet. And she asked me, she goes, because I've been leaving work about like 45 minutes early. I think I mentioned this earlier. I asked for like paid family leave so I could leave work early every day that I'm in treatment. So I've been leaving work about 45 minutes to an hour early so I could make it on time to my TMS treatment. And my supervisor usually never leaves early, the one that's down here at the school that's nearby. But she had to leave early last week because she had to take her cat to the vet. And she asked me, how do you leave? Because the gates are closed like around 3 or 3:15, right? Like, where do you go out through? Like, is it the front gate or the back gate where the middle schoolers go out through? And I said, well, my parents dropped me off. And that was the extent of it, because the speech assistant also asked me, like, where do you park? Because I was trying to explain to them that the front gate was open usually when I leave, it's open. And she said, oh, is it the front gate? Where do you park? And I felt like they were kind of prying into it a little bit about, like, how I leave, like, where I park. Maybe it was just my imagination. Where it was like I felt kind of cornered, so I just kind of said, oh, my parents dropped me off. And then they just said, oh, and we just kind of left it at that. So I don't know now that they know that I don't drive, or if they just think my parents are temporarily dropping me off. I feel like it's not something that I should have to disclose, but it's a real handicap to be in the U.S. and be 34 years old and not be able to drive. And it's kind of embarrassing. Anyway, so that was my day today. No really, like, strange or weird side effects other than the headaches that seem to come and go. My depression is at about a 6, and with my anxiety being at about a 7 or 8, not too much of a change since I started making these videos. And I will be back tomorrow to report on day 16.